Good Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns getting ready for their playoff opener against the Houston Texans, 4:30 Saturday. So today, the last day of practice. Tomorrow, a walkthrough. They get on a plane. They head over to Texas. Now, the Browns did rule out a few players for the game. Grant Delpit coming back from an injured list. He is ruled out along with Dustin Hopkins, Cedric Tillman still in the concussion protocol. Additionally, Juan Thornhill, Pierre Strong, Mike Ford, all listed as questionable. Denzel Ward limited in practice today from something that occurred during practice with his knee. Kevin Stefanski talks about being down Delpit and possibly Ward against the Texans now.
Yeah, just something with his knee. He was limited. I don't really have an update past that.
Practice today?
Yes.
What'd you see out of Grant? I saw you guys ruled out Grant. Just not ready yet, or?
Yeah, just coming along. Just all part of the rehab process. Part of that process is getting out there on the practice field and getting through individual and getting through some team periods. But he's trending in the right direction. He's progressing really well, so we'll see.
So no setback?
No.
And then we got this just a little bit ago from Ian Rappaport, hearing that Denzel Ward is okay, which would be good news. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, it's always something there. Never a dull moment. You think you got Ward back, you're good to go, and then he's limited in practice. But you certainly hope Ian Rappaport's tweet is the case, because I would imagine they want to be aggressive in man coverage with the Texans.
Yeah, and look, you have depth at DB too, so you feel good enough about it. If Denzel Ward did have to miss, you feel like Greg Newsome can hold it down. You got Cam Mitchell who can roll out there. We've seen this team win games before, play great defense without Denzel Ward. So as good as Denzel Ward is, we also are deep enough, and that's why the Browns have the #1 defense in the NFL. But yeah, it would be great to have Grant, and it would be really great to have Juan and Denzel back, because they're also experienced players as well.
All right, other side of things, Texans getting a little more healthy as we take a look. Jonathan Grenard, Will Anderson, both return. Those are the really talented edge rushers. Good chance they will be able to go on Saturday. We already know C.J. Stroud expected to play. Those all guys that did not go in that initial time. Grenard had to leave the game early by being banged up. Those, again, C.J. Stroud, likely Rookie of the Year. Will Anderson, possibly Defensive Rookie of the Year. And Grenard, really good edge rushers. So those are three of their best players.
Absolutely. Those are three players that you got to keep an eye on for the Cleveland Browns. It's the playoffs, though. You're not going to get any easy rides. So, yeah, they're going to be healthy. You got to expect that Will Anderson and Grenard are going to come at you, but the Browns have dealt with good edge rushers before, dealt with good pressure before. And if they want to be a team that people are talking about could potentially be the biggest threat to the Baltimore Ravens, they got to be able to handle Grenard and Will Anderson this week.
Yeah, along those lines, Stephen A. Smith, ESPN's First Take, on if the Browns or the Rams are more dangerous in the playoffs to those #1 seeds.
I'm going to go with the Browns, because Flacco, you know, in his 5 starts, they're 4-1. They've won 4 straight. He's the man. What does he do? He's averaging 323 passing yards. He's flinging that football. He turns 39 years of age, January 16th, if I remember correctly. Amari Cooper is reminding everybody why he was the #1 option at the wide receiver spots. David Njoku can absolutely ball. They can run the football, and they can do some things offensively with Kevin Stefanski as the coach. Now what we really get to is their defense, which is elite. They are elite, and they're the only team in the National Football League that has beaten the 2 #1 seeds, both the San Francisco 49ers and the Baltimore Ravens. I'm looking at them right now, and I'm saying to myself, they've got their work cut out for them. I understand that. I understand that Joe Flacco is prone to throwing interceptions, turning the football over. I get all of that too. But when you have a defense this elite, and you have an offense capable of putting up points, I say they're the most dangerous team to upset and disrupt the 2 #1s meeting in the Super Bowl.
So Quincy, I know you've kind of addressed this. Do you think the Browns have a real shot at winning it all?
They have a chance at winning it all. I mean, like any team, you're going to need luck. You're going to need things to go your way. You're going to need some favorable matchups to roll towards you. It's not just going to be one thing that you're not just going to power yourself through the playoffs. But yeah, they have as good a shot as anybody. And they have that defense that really does give them the chance. Offensively, we have to see how consistent we can stay. But if that defense plays at the level we've expected them to play at all season, then they'll be as good as a contender as anybody in the NFL right now.
Yeah, the thing that wins in playoff football in the NFL is an elite, something that is elite. Just good or average doesn't usually win. Elite takes care of good or average. So I think the defense does give them a shot if they play to their potential. Along those lines, take a look at these numbers. They're just a little staggering. Browns defense, 15 of the 50 scoring drives they've allowed, that's 30% of them, started inside the Browns' 40-yard line. 7 of those 15 started inside the red zone. Browns have only allowed 35 scoring drives all year when the ball is at the 50-yard line or further. That's 17% of the 210 total drives. 28 were for touchdowns, and 4 of them were against Cincinnati when the backups played. What that's telling you, Quincy, if you look at it this way, if the Browns don't give their opponents short fields, they basically might score twice against them.
Yeah, it's very hard to manufacture serious, like, long drives against the Cleveland Browns. Like, it's been like that all season. Like, you might get 1 or 2 maybe at the beginning or at the end of a half break, but it's very difficult to score on this defense because they get pressure consistently. And not only do they get pressure consistently, they can cover on the back end at a high level as well. And they're deep. Even when they're rotating guys, they're able to be a pretty top-level defense. So they have all the tools in place to be a good playoff team because, again, they're not asking the offense to be great. They're just asking the offense to capitalize on a great defense.
Yeah, and keep in mind, those drives, some of them are 2-play drives because they gave up a big play. Those are touchdown drives. You know, those are truly kind of staggering numbers. Here's some good news, too. We've talked about Myles Garrett, Kenny Wynn, defensive player. Well, Pro Football Focus, the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year is Myles Garrett, 94.0 PFF grade, 18.3% pressure percentage. So Garrett awarded by Pro Football Focus as the Defensive Player of the Year. We'll see how the voting and all that goes. If he has a big playoff, that could sway people as well.
I think what's going to sway people is more than anything is stuff like the PFF's thing, where it's like, oh, okay, this publication saying that he's he's the best defensive player of the year. This publication saying it. Like, at some point, the Associated Press is going to be like, well, we don't want to be the one that says somebody else, right? Like, they want to kind of go with it. So the more places that are saying openly Myles Garrett's the best defensive player in football, the better it is for your argument. Now, I don't know how much playoffs are allowed to affect voting. We know that these voters are human, and if they see something crazy in the playoffs, it might affect or sway their voting one way or the other. Some people are real strict on that. Some people aren't as strict on that. But I think what really matters is, like, hey, these writers don't want to be out here saying that somebody's the defensive player of the year that nobody else thinks it is, right? If you're getting more publications to agree with that, then that's usually what's going to sway that vote.
It is a regular season thing. The thing that the playoffs do, though, is you build. That's why T.J. Watt has built his little reputation, is because he's done it in the playoffs when games are magnified. So Myles Garrett has the opportunity to kind of set that in motion for the rest of his career just by playing well in the playoffs.
Well, even TJ, he hasn't played in as many playoff games as people would think, right? Because he had the 2020 game against the Cleveland Browns, really didn't do much in that one. And in the 2021 game, he did have a touchdown in, but they got blown out by like 40 points by Kansas City. So even TJ is somebody who really hasn't benefited from playoff games because I don't think he's had a single memorable one if you go back and look at what he's done, because he hasn't played in very many.
The national spotlight games he had, Monday Night Football he's come up in, but fair enough. All right, Myles Garrett was asked about having Joe Flacco, who made his last playoff start 9 years ago, as Browns starting quarterback, as well as the similarities everybody's been talking about with the 2017 Eagles, who won a Super Bowl, in terms of having veterans around who are injured but are still around the team to help the young guys.
Well, first, if I hear another story about this 2017 Eagles team, I'm a loser. But the leaders that you mentioned, whether they've had a lot of time on the field or a little time on the field, those guys have played pivotal roles in our success and how this team has navigated through these waters, and they continue to be a part of the team when they don't have to. Continue to inspire and be leaders from the sideline, in the meeting rooms and around the locker room, and that'll continue to pay dividends along this playoff run.
Can you believe it's been like 9 years between playoff starts for Joe, and what kind of confidence does it give you that you have a guy who's won 7 times on the road?
I mean, a guy like that, this is nothing new. He's won at home, he's won away. I'm just hoping he doesn't expire before we get to the Super Bowl.
That's a great answer. The other thing is, you can tell Myles Garrett kind of motivated just to write some history for the Browns, it appears, too.
Yeah, I mean, he wants to write history for himself, the Browns, and everything else around him, right? Like, he has a lot on the line. He wants to be somebody who's known as not just playing well in the regular season, but playing games that mattered and moments that matter, like any star player will want to. So, yeah, I think Myles sees a lot. I mean, this is his defense we're talking about, right, as the anchor of this team. So, by proxy, he's kind of the anchor of this team. So, how well this team does is going to reflect on him.
Quincy Carrier and I can step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. A little video analysis of C.J. Stroud, what he did against the Colts. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, I'm actually watching your show right now, getting all pumped up, and oh my gosh, I keep just thinking, is it Saturday yet? I am so excited. I'm so freaking excited and hyper, and I'm even more excited because I just read that Flacco was 6-0 in the first round, and then 5-0 in the wild card round, which makes me even more wacko for Flacco. Let's think and go. Hoo, hoo, hoo.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, it will continue to get like that the further the playoffs go.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. And who knows how the playoffs shake out. Potentially, since the Browns are the 5 seed, if there's any upset this week, that puts them in a position where they could get a home playoff game. And if there are multiple upsets, then that puts them in a position where they're likely to get a home playoff game. So if we could get a home playoff game in Cleveland, obviously you got to take care of business against the Texans, and they are no joke, no walkthrough at all. But if you can beat the Texans and have some things bounce your way afterwards, it could lead to some special moments for the city.
All right, so former Texans quarterback David Carr with a look at C.J. Stroud, and take a look at what he breaks down here against the Colts.
This is a 7-step drop from under center. We haven't seen that since Kurt Warner. Like, who does that anymore? Nobody, okay? 7-step drop, and out here you have a big post. I don't even really know. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really even know what this route is. Is it a glance, a post? Is it a deep in route? Because the safety, as you'll see, he doesn't even know why CJ throws this ball, right? They're trying to work something down here, some type of double move. It doesn't work out. So he steps up and he lets this thing rip right at this middle safety. I mean, look at this, okay? He's about to break, right? Right in here, right? And that ball's got to travel 25, 30 yards. This thing gets there in a hurry, all right? But the beautiful part is, the safety can't believe it, right? The beautiful part is what is actually happening in the pocket, okay? So we're going to go 7-step drop. Check this out, okay? This is top of the drop. You have guys right in his face. All right, I'm going to run this back so we get a good sense of what's actually happening at the release. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, that's not easy stuff. That's real. I've been in that jersey, right? In that stadium. That's not easy. That throw is very difficult.
Quincy, in the 80s and 90s, we called that a bad angle to the ball by the safety. And if C.J. Stroud takes a 7-step drop against this defensive line, Myles Garrett will say thank you.
Yeah, there's no shot you get a 7-step drop. Like, there's just no, they're not calling that. They're barely going to call 5-step drops. Like, not out the gun. Like, absolutely, they're just not going to do that against the Cleveland Browns. And that's, again, why Myles Garrett is considered to be the best defensive player in football, because off rip, you don't even have to worry about that kind of stuff. Like, that play, not in the game plan this week.
Yep.
For the Texans, because they're just not going to trust running it against Myles Garrett. And if they do, they have to change the play completely, because then they have to have like 3 guys back to stay for Myles and then hold there, and then it throws off the timing of everything. It's funny because that was a breakdown about C.J. Stroud, but in the conversation of it, we're starting to talk about how important Myles Garrett is, because it just something as simple as that, right? A little bread and butter play that they like to go to out of a 7 drop. You're just never going to see them go to that against the Cleveland Browns. And that's playing defense before the game even starts.
Right. You can't do 7-step drops with Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett. You can't. This is also kind of interesting. So the Browns have deployed cover 1 at the second highest rate in the league, 29.1%. With corresponding 7th overall ranking in EPA allowed per dropback. So cover 1, Browns are really good at it. C.J. Stroud is 26th out of 32 starting quarterbacks in EPA per dropback against that coverage. Kind of leads me into something that you had said. It's a pretty decent matchup for the Browns, what they like to do versus what the Texans like to do.
Yeah, the Browns like to play cover 1 and match up with that, and the Texans, they like to throw against zone. They like to kind of attack that way. Also, on the other side of the ball, what I find interesting is DeMeco Ryans. He's a San Francisco disciple guy, and he runs that similar offense that they used to, or not offense, defense that they used to run with Joe Woods last year. So you're talking about a Browns team and an offensive and defensive staff that has great familiarity with what the Texans want to do offensively. And then defensively, the Browns, well, offensively for the Cleveland Browns, they have a lot of familiarity with what the Texans like to run on that side, because it's the same stuff that Joe Woods liked to run last year. Now, obviously, they're executing at a higher level than the Browns were last year, but still, I mean, you got a lot of guys on that team that spent 3 years in that defense, so they know it pretty well, and they know how to exploit it. And I think that's why they were able to take advantage in that first matchup and really get a lot of things open for that passing game versus a good team. And I think that something similar could happen again.
All right, Chris Sims again, former NFL quarterback, talking about who the most important position groups are for this Browns-Texan matchup that aren't quarterbacks. This from NBC Sports, Chris Sims unbuttoned.
I put the Texans corners in this for a few reasons here. You know, Stingley, Steven Nelson, and Desmond King. One, Cleveland's running the ball better than they were at that point of the season on Christmas Eve. They've kind of figured that a little bit. I think they've got these tackles in shape to where I think, oh, okay, they're going to rely on the run game more than they did the first time around. All right, so I think the Texans are going to need more people in the box, right? They're not a big defense, but they got speed and everything along those range. But I think they're going to have to worry about that a little bit. So you'd want to favor that to a degree. But the other thing is, too, the coverages they play in Houston, and we talk about this a lot. Like when we talk about the 49ers and how to attack it the last few years, what do I always say? They take away the 10 to 15-yard throw.
Right.
So you got to throw the ball down the field. They kind of call your bluff. Flacco and company did that a little bit. What do I always say with the 49ers too? Like they try to take away the middle of the field. Shanahan goes, wait, I kill everybody here. Don't let everybody kill us there, right? He tells his team that. So where do I always say the last few years you're playing the 49ers? Throw the ball outside the numbers. They're corners. It's playing a zone, but it really ends up like a man-to-man more times than not on the outside. Flacco can throw the ball outside. He did that a lot in the first matchup.
And again, those are going even a little bit deeper with what we were talking about the matchups and the understanding of how they attack it. If the Browns can run the football against the Texans and that interior defense, this will be a long day for the Texans. They're pretty good against the run, even though Jonathan Taylor kind of carved them up last week. If the Browns find a way to run the football a little bit, it's going to be a long game for the Texans.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for the Browns, we don't have anything close to Jonathan Taylor. So I don't anticipate us being able to carve it up against them because our run problems have just been so on and off that it's hard for me to think that they turned a corner and or they might just be hot or cold at a given moment. I just think that they really rely on those guards being perfect, like on time, and that's just never going to happen consistently. And this is the last few weeks of the season outside of that game versus the Colts. The Texans have been playing at a top 5 level, and maybe with a guy like Jonathan Taylor who's been able to break some tackles, make some guys miss, we just don't have that at running back or at guard where we can just like have these mistakes happen. So I don't think we'll be able to I kind of worry, my big worry about the game is like what happens if the Browns get up early? Are we going to be able to sustain that lead without doing stuff that puts the ball at high risk of turnover or making us have incredibly short possessions because we can't get the run game going? That's going to be something for the Browns to answer too if they're fortunate enough to get into that position to where they can get a lead. It's like, hey, can we manufacture this run game versus a good run defense at will? Not just like, hey, we're going to get like a 20-yard chunk here or there. Like at will, 4 or 5-yard chunks consistently. Can they do that? They've done that like 2 games this season.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take another timeout, other side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Talk a little bit about the defense as well. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Looking at Schwartz when he was with the Eagles, with the year that they won the Super Bowl, the one thing I will say is looking at their offense, they weren't the best. They struggled in the playoffs, but they were still led by that historic defense that Schwartz coached. And I say all that to say, Kevin has to lean on Schwartz in the playoffs. And this is no different. Schwartz has always been leaned on, and he's always been reliable. So I think we're going to have to rely on him this go around, and Schwartz knows that.
Well, Quincy, the offense is banged up, so they got to rely on the defense because no Nick Chubb, no Deshaun Watson, they're banged up. That's why you got to rely on the defense.
Even if Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb are here, we'll be relying on the defense. We're talking about this being one of the best defenses in the last 10 years. Yes, you're going to lean on them, right? Like you could have Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson, everybody healthy. You would probably have a good offense. You wouldn't have one of the best offenses in the last 10 years, right? Like you're going to lean on the defense. That's where you have the best players. That's where you have the best unit of football on the team. And we kind of even talked about it beforehand where it's like, hey, if any of these sides of the ball have the potential to be like really like all-time great, it's the defense, not really the offense. The offense has had the potential to be pretty good. So yeah, it's the story. It's the same story it's been all season. This is a defensive-oriented team, and the defense is going to have to be what leads this team to anything. like any team that leads on their defense.
Right, and especially, take a look at this. We'll put it in perspective for you. So this is from the NFL on CBS. Browns will be the first team since the merger. It's back in the 70s to play a playoff game without their Week 1 starting quarterback Deshaun Watson, running back Nick Chubb, left tackle Jack Conklin, and right tackle Jedrick Wills. So that's just look at the. Okay, what that's telling you is we're going to take away your run game. Let's see what you can do.
Yeah, basically, right? You take out Jed, Jack, and Nick, and then Deshaun's a huge part. We thought he would get like 500 rushing yards this season and maybe like 6-7 touchdowns. So, I mean, like just losing Deshaun too, like it also hurt the run game as well. A lot of what you want to do in the run game predicated off of the attention that Deshaun would get as a runner. And so you lose a huge part of that with this team with both injuries throughout the year. And, the offense has been fine for what it is, but if we didn't have this defense, we wouldn't be in the position that the Browns are in. So, I think we all kind of know where our bread is buttered with this team.
All right. So, again, I know you've done this on your show. Do you think Jim Schwartz gets hired away from the Browns?
Probably not. Now, there are some legitimate concerns with Jim Schwartz. Like the head coach run there in Detroit was not good, and it was lengthy. And it's one thing if you have like a short one, because people can blame that on something. But if you have a lengthy bad run, that makes it less likely that you get rehired. Also, he's 57, which usually defensive minds, when they get hired to be head coaches, are young, like under 45 young. He's a little bit over that. And then he's had health issues that teams, what if you hire Jim Schwartz? Some of those health issues pop up. Then you have to go to an interim solution. I think there's a number of reasons that, he already didn't start the most appealing spot, right? Being a defensive coordinator, not really where teams love to go to make hires. And then you add all of that on top of you can have Jim Schwartz here for like 5 years if he wants to.
Yeah, the one thing about his time in Detroit, remember he inherited a winless team. Matthew Stafford, they did go to the playoffs and then it kind of went down. But I'm with you. Defensive coordinator, not the young hot thing. It's kind of trending away from that. I think if somebody hires him, I think he'd end up being a pretty good head coach this go around. I really do. Just kind of the way this culture has transformed and the way the players have responded to him. He's been everything the Browns could have asked for and more.
He's a great defensive coordinator. I don't know how to project that to anything else though. Like a lot of what makes somebody a good head coach is not necessarily the stuff that we see in public, right? So maybe he might be a great head coach, or maybe he was a fine enough head coach out there in Detroit and he just didn't get the things to go his way. But yeah, if he got another opportunity, I'm pretty sure he'd be at least competent. And that's really what you need out of a head coach, just be competent.
All right, so Chris Sims, again, former NFL quarterback, on the Browns offense against Texans defense.
The Texans don't like to blitz. So they need those two guys on the edge to be healthy, right? The DeMeco Ryan defense, the 49er defense, they're not a blitzing defense. They want their front four to get there. So that'll be big. So that's where the two defensive ends will help out. And then certainly the other thing, too, that really jumped out to me, and you hear me say this a lot sometimes with this defensive scheme, not everybody understands how to attack it, right? They don't understand the rules of this 49ers DeMeco Ryan defense. Mm-hmm. And they don't understand how they pass things off. And you hear me say, like, they go 4-on-3 or 3-on-2, and you got to figure out how they're passing it off and how they're working that little 3-on-2 zone. Cleveland showed a very good understanding of it. To me, Cleveland showed the ability of, like, we get your rules, and we know how to stress them and put you in some problems. And they did that, hence that's why he threw for 395,000 yards in the game, is because of that. So that's where Houston's got to change some things up just a little bit, maybe give some different looks to not let Cleveland get such a groove offensively.
I'm super excited about this game because either way it goes, it's a really compelling storyline, right?
And Quincy, we've alluded to that. If the Texans try to do the same thing they did defensively, I'm not sure they see a different result.
Well, the book that they're reaching from, right, it's the same book that we've seen for 3 years, right, with Joe Woods. We know what those coverage rules are. And since this team has had so many issues when they try to adjust those coverage rules because teams were catching up to them, we also know the chaos that can be created when those rules are being adjusted, right? All the communication issues. So we know how hard of a defense that is to adjust once you've caught up to it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Texans do and what opportunities that could open up for this Browns team if the Texans do try to change some of those rules up. But 3 years in that Joe Woods defense, in that San Francisco style 4-2-5, like if this then that defense, guys are going to know it pretty well on both sides of the ball. And I would argue, especially on like Kevin Stefanski on that side of the ball, because he's probably had to spend a significant amount of time the last few years working on that side of the ball, trying to help the defense get to a point to where they could be credible, because that's really what's been holding back the team. And that's part of Stefanski's job as the head coach, is to be able to problem solve stuff like that, and he was probably consistently coming up with things that would stress out Joe Woods' defense.
All right, so before we go to break, take a look at this. This is from Jake Burns' Orange and Brown report. It's really interesting. Brown's explosive plays, completions, it's 20 or more yards completions. Weeks 1 through 12, they had 24, tied for 27th in the NFL. Weeks 13 through 18, the Joe Flacco weeks, 29, first in the NFL. The Browns kind of switched quarterbacks, switched it up, and they got their explosive plays by what they went to with Joe Flacco.
Well, they were able to go to something that they've been more comfortable in, right? We talk about the comfort that they had in going against Joe Woods' defense. It's the same thing with Joe Flacco. They got a quarterback who was comfortable in what they wanted, what they originally ran for like the last few years before Watson, and then they got a quarterback who also is very comfortable in that, and that created a lot of opportunities, because not only is that comfortable for Joe Flacco, that's comfortable for David Njoku. That's all stuff they know. When you had Deshaun in there, or you had PJ in there, you were trying to work out a new system that you were still trying to push out all the kinks at. It's kind of think of it like how the Ravens weren't necessarily firing on all cylinders the first 6-8 weeks of the season when they were trying to combine that Todd Monken system with what Lamar Jackson does well. But now you see them rolling, and they finally got to that result. So yes, it should concern you, like that number before the 12 weeks, but I also think they'll be able to find that comfort eventually. Like, they're ball talented and willing enough people to be able to find that comfort. And I think we saw signs of it. So you see what's capable with Kevin when he has somebody who's comfortable with what he's doing. And once Kevin and whoever's playing with Deshaun next year get comfortable, I think you'll see similar results.
Quincy Carrier, Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage, and I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Myles Garrett about playoff football. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Myles Garrett talked about playoff football, how it's different from the regular season.
I feel like guys, they understand the moment. They understand that, 60, 75 plays, that's it. That could be your season, or you could be progressing to the next stage. And, they're going, I know you're always supposed to play, it's your last one. Like, it literally could be, especially in the playoffs. You can't guarantee to make it back. and guys, especially veterans, start to understand that moment and really, press the gas. And that's why we're peaking at the right moment. Guys really understand that we need to press the gas and make sure that everyone's ready. And we're all pointing in the same direction when it comes Saturday.
Quincy, it's been a little different just listening to them talk in preparation for this. It's just a little bit of a different attitude and a different mindset that they appear to have this year.
Yeah, this team's been here before. They've played in the playoffs. It's funny to think about it. They're playing the Texans. The Texans are the young team. They're the team that the Browns were in 2020. The Browns are a little bit more experienced, kind of know what's ahead of them, what to anticipate, and the kind of energy that they're going to need for the rest of the week. So, yeah, the Browns are more in that veteran mindset because it's not new. This is something they've been working really hard to get back to, and they understand how hard it is to get back to this place once they get here.
So the Texans injury report came out a little bit ago. Here's a look at it. So expected to play Will Anderson, Andrew Beck, Jonathan Grenard, Malik Collins, Rankins. Game time decision on Noah Brown and Robert Woods. Those are the wide receivers. Jerry Hughes ruled out. So Hughes is a guy that, he kind of rotates in there with Grenard and Anderson, a veteran guy. So they're going to be down one of the edge rushers. And then the wide receivers are important as well.
Yeah, the wide receivers are important. It's a playoff game. They're a really good team, and they're going to be healthy for this one. So you want to make sure that you play your best football, especially on the road.
So I know you've addressed this. You think the Browns are ready for the playoffs? Do you think they've gone through a lot?
Yeah, I think they are. I think this is a team that's been through a lot, that's worked through a lot of problems so far this season, and they are at that moment or at that place where they're comfortable with the pressure of the postseason. At times, especially coming off of that playoff year, you could tell that this was a team that was not comfortable with that spotlight. But there's been multiple times where the Browns have had that spotlight on them, and they've played just as well as they did when they don't have the spotlight on them, right? Like, that's one of the things that's different about this team. Their confidence and calmness in going into this game is another sign to me that they are ready for this spotlight. They're ready for this moment, and it's not going to be too big for them.
What about last-minute tweaks that they need to make for the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they need to make some adjustments. Like, once they get Grant Delpit back, I think working him in with DeAnthony Bell would also be helpful. I think there's a lot of small tweaks that you can make around that, like maybe getting not DeAnthony Bell, David Bell more involved as well on the offensive side of the ball. There's some small tweaks and adjustments they can make by just getting some of these guys who have stepped up in some absences over the last few weeks involved a little bit more, just so you can have more options.
What about keys? What are the key when you look at this? What do you think the keys to beating the Texans?
The keys to beating the Texans, it's going to start where it always starts, right? The defensive line, getting pressure, stopping them, slowing them down, making sure that you are able to speed up C.J. Stroud and not let him process what he's seeing in front of him, because the second he processes, he's deadly. So you need to speed him up, make him uncomfortable. Look at the New York Jets game. That was a team that was able to make him pretty uncomfortable for the most part. Only threw for 90 yards in that game. It was his worst rated game on Pro Football Focus. So you want to use that as the template. Get them in cover one, man up with your corners, and put them in a position to where CJ has to beat you in less than 2 seconds, and his wide receivers have to beat your corners in less than 2 seconds. And if that's the bet that the Browns make with the Texans, that's a bet the Browns feel good about being able to cover.
What about matchups? What matchups are you watching as you watch this game?
Yeah, Nico Collins versus Denzel Ward will always be an interesting one. Laramie Tunsil versus Myles Garrett will be an interesting one. And it'll be interesting to see what their game plan is for Myles Garrett. Like, do they just trust Laramie Tunsil to go one-on-one with Myles, or are they going to use a double team with Laramie Tunsil? Like, how much is the fact that they have Laramie Tunsil going to affect how they want to protect against Myles Garrett and how bold they are in their protection plan? Like, do they feel like they can get away with some 5-step drops this week because they have Laramie? Like, that's going to be something to be seen. Or is Myles going to be in more of a position to make plays because they're just kind of betting on Laramie more this week? I think that's something that's going to be interesting to watch, because Myles' most damaging games are usually in games where teams feel pretty confident about their left tackle.
All right, before I let you go, what could turn this in the Texans' favor? What could enable them to get a win in advance and end the Browns' season?
If you don't get pressure. Simple as that. If you don't get pressure, you're going to let C.J. Stroud process. He's going to tear you apart, even if you're a good secondary. So if you don't get pressure, you don't speed him up, it is what it is. But if you do what you've done all year, you're going to be able to slow him down quite significantly.
How concerned are you with turnovers? I mean, the Browns have had one game where they haven't turned the ball over, the Cardinals game.
Yeah, the last 3 weeks, the turnovers haven't been as serious. Like, I feel like they're kind of just inflated numbers. So I'm not extra concerned about the turnovers going into this week. Obviously, when you've had as many as the Browns, you have to worry about them on some level, but I'm not overly concerned.
Quincy Carrier, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
Thank you.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Always really good and insightful stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily Network 216, straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Ooh, holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back!
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Former Texans quarterback David Carr with a look at some of Houston's movement and motion that they used on offense against the Colts. This from NFL's Total Access.
They use some motion, and they'll use some play-action pass, okay? So what a lot of teams will do out of this formation, you got a fullback-type body. They're going to sell run left. They're going to bring this guy back on the flat. He'll have a corner route. He'll run some type of deep over, right? We're going to fake hard, come back out here. That's what it's going to look like to the defense. But actually, we're not doing any of that, okay? What we're actually doing is we're going to roll. We're going to make it all look like that, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to send this guy deep and then out at like 20 yards. This is an incredible pass, right, by CJ. It's set up by the play design, the pocket movement. And look at this. This is a nice throw right on the sideline. Big completion. I love what Bobby Slowick's doing with him.
Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily Network 216. Casey, I don't think C.J. Stroud will see a wide receiver with that much cushion all game. And the other thing is the motion. None of it matters because they're not paying any attention to it. They're trying to get to the quarterback.
Yeah. Without a blown coverage, you're not going to see someone open to that degree. You said it. You know, their emphasis is starts up front, and they just get after quarterbacks and they play sticky man coverage, and that's something else that C.J. Stroud has struggled with this year is man coverage. You know, and they'll mix in some zone, but just to confuse and kind of show them different looks. But make no mistake, they know where their bread is buttered. They play tight man coverage, and that's only going to be intensified during this playoff run.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, Denzel Ward tweaked something in his knee. Nationally, Ian Rappaport's reporting he heard he's going to be okay. That obviously you want your best cover corner, but they've been good. Everybody's been good. All right, Myles Garrett also talked today about what has impressed him most about the Texans rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud.
His composure for his age, his first year, being able to make his progressions and get it out on time. A lot of quarterbacks, when it's their first year, they stick to 1, 2, and they have to get it out, but can't really read the field. And I think he's done a great job of being able to sort of game down to this point. But we have to be able to speed it up for him and make him see how he feels when the bullets are flying. It's the best defense in the league. And we got to go out and show it. We got to go put our stamp on that and make sure that we're the same defense, whether we're home or away, and continue to be ourselves.
Kizzy, I've said this all week. I love what you're hearing. There's a respect for C.J. Stroud, but the defense is looking at it as we're the best defense. We need to go out and show it. It's time to show it.
Yeah, I think that's the line you need to go. You need to show respect. C.J.'s had an outstanding rookie year. But that's not what's going on here. You are the story. You dictate. This defense dictates what happens, and that's what it is. Like if you're this defense, if you're Myles Garrett, if you're these corners, like you guys know what you do. Don't worry about what they do. And he's 100% right. Something that doesn't get talked about enough with Stroud is how good his eyes are. He has almost like veteran eyes. Like he's not just one read and hurry up and get rid of it. But if you pressure him, if you can get him off his spot, he's going to look at Nico Collins, whether he's open or not, in those situations. But as long as you play your game and stay within what you are, you can dictate this matchup.
Yeah, and quite frankly, you have to. If you don't, C.J. Stroud can cause you some problems, without question. This is interesting. This is from Warren Sharp Football. Browns defense ranks number 2 in pressure rate. Take a look at C.J. Stroud's splits. It's kind of what we're talking about. Clean pocket, he just absolutely kills it. 20 touchdowns, almost 70% completion, 9.2 yards per attempt. When he's pressured, he looks more like a rookie, like a good rookie quarterback, though. 3 touchdowns, completion percentage down right around 56.0 yards per attempt. Those are numbers that illustrate how important getting pressure and getting in the rookie quarterback's face are.
Yeah, if you look at those bottom numbers, that he actually looks like a rookie in those situations. Now, he doesn't turn the ball over a great deal, but if I were to describe the Cleveland Browns defense to someone who had never seen them, I would say they're relentless up front with getting pressure, and they play sticky coverage on the back end. Those are both things that C.J. Stroud has struggled with. And I don't want to be disrespectful because, like I've said earlier, he's had a tremendous rookie season, should win the Offensive Rookie of the Year going away. And I think in 1 or 2 years, we're talking about him being among the truly elite quarterbacks.
Yep.
But this is kind of set up on a platter for you to have success on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, if you allow him to go and beat you, shame on you, as you're not the defense that we've been talking about all season long, without question. Now that they do have the ability to run, Singletary and Pierce have had games, and we've known the Browns' running game defenses. It's been spotty in some games. Take a look at this. This is from NFL Stats tweeting this out. These are tackles for loss this season. Hunter and Crosby tied for 1. Mack is second or third, it would be, because there's 2 of them tied for 1. It's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who didn't play a lot of snaps in the middle of the season, is 4th in the league, 3 TFLs behind the leaders. Watt is 5th, Parsons is 6th, and Myles Garrett is down at tied for 7 with 17. So you look at those, and you've got 2 guys that are among the league leaders in TFLs. And again, go and do that. That's kind of the mindset is you might get us for 9 yards, but you're going to start the next series at 2nd and 16.
When I look at those numbers, it just shows me how truly special JOK has been, and that he's a victim of misclassification. Because if you look at those names above and below him, those guys are all going to the Pro Bowl. but they're edge rushers. Now, some of them are classified as 3-4 outside linebackers. He's truly an off-ball linebacker making those plays at the line of scrimmage and behind the line of scrimmage. Like, he's an anomaly. He's special, and because you don't see anyone else in that list, you get down to Levante David playing off-ball linebacker. Like, he's been able to do that from a different position, and it just makes me excited to what he could be, where his career is going to go from here. He's already doing special things, and this has kind of been the first year under Schwartz where he's kind of had this freedom to attack, and it just shows how truly special JOK has been this year.
The other thing it shows me Jim Schwartz knows how to utilize him. He knows what he has, and he knows how to unlock that.
Yeah, Jim Schwartz loves to attack. So, it just makes sense that if you have a guy with the skill set of JOK, let him go eat. Let him go make a difference. And that's exactly what he's doing. 20, that's a ridiculous number for an off-ball linebacker. It's really unheard of.
Right, and you know what? Go do it in the playoffs. Let's show the rest of the country what you've been doing all season long. Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily Network 216, and I can step aside. Take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll hear more about and take a video look of what the Texans should be concerned about. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back!
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily Network 216. Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback, on the concerns that he has for the Texans.
Houston's worried about their O-line. You heard me on Sunday night go, damn, I thought Houston ran the ball too much, right? I thought they should throw the ball. Well, watching the film back, and this is why I'm always glad I watch the film, because TV can lie to you. I understand why they did it. They couldn't block Indianapolis. They could not. Their game plan was basically get the ball out of C.J. Stroud's hands. Let's not throw the ball too much because we only think bad things can happen because we can't protect. They got George Fant, who's been on a whole bunch of different teams, playing a right tackle.
Sure.
Scruggs, I think I wrote in my notes, the right guard. The interior part is not great for their offensive line. They have issues. Scruggs, 70, being the weak link of the group there, gets beat a lot. It happened in Cleveland. It happened against the Colts. That's what I worry about. I don't think they're going to be able to have a lot of consistent success against the Cleveland Browns defense. Where I give them a fighting chance, and you've heard me say this too, Cleveland is in your face a lot of the times in the game, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's to stop the run or the pass. To where there are certain plays where you're like, well, if they run the ball here and he gets past the first line of defense, there is nobody else, yeah. Right? It's literally like 9 guys are 1 yard from the ball, and it's like if they break through, watch out, right?
And Casey, that is the concern. A couple of home runs.
Yeah, that's the path to victory for the Texans. They have to be able to establish the run and kind of keep the pass rush at bay because they are not built to withstand. Now, Laramie Tunsil has actually been pretty successful against Myles Garrett. As successful as an offensive tackle can be against Myles Garrett, which that's limited. But if you look on the other side of the line, last time they played on Christmas Eve, Zadarius straight up just ate. He had 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack that didn't count because of a penalty on top of that. So they need to utilize their ability to run, and they have to lean heavily on that. If they cannot do that and establish the run, they become one-dimensional against this defense. No matter how talented C.J. Stroud is or how much of a playmaker Nico Collins is, it only matters so much. This defense is built to stop you in that manner, and I think that's the path to victory for the Texans. And if they can't run the ball, that path gets very narrow.
So take a look. This is from NBC Sports tweeting this out. This is Joe Flacco in wild card games. Back in 2009, they beat the Dolphins when he was with the Ravens. 2010, Ravens beat the Patriots. 2011, beat the Chiefs, beat the Colts, beat the Steelers. Look at that. He can add the Texans to that list if he's able to go into Houston and get it done this Saturday. But, again, 5-0 in wild card games.
Yeah, the headline of that graphic says it all. January Joe, right there. And and we talked about it earlier in this week, and that last playoff win, came 3,000 some odd days ago. But that experience matters. That transfers. He's been on this stage several times. He's never lost a wild card game or an opening round game for that matter. He's used to the survive and advance mentality that you have to have in the playoffs, and he'll be able to help instill that in his teammates, and they'll have confidence knowing that Joe's kind of navigated these waters before. And it takes solace in that, and you need that. You need to be able to be in the huddle and look back at your quarterback and feel confident that you're going to get it done. And the Browns will have that this Saturday.
All right, so this from CBS Sports, ranking the 14 coaching staffs in the playoffs. So Tier 1, the elite, they got the 49ers with Shanahan, the Chiefs with Reed, Ravens with Harbaugh. Fair enough. They've done it before. Tier 2, Browns with Kevin Stefanski, Dan Campbell, Dolphins, Mike McDaniel, Sean McVay, and the Lions, you look at it, I guess that's fair. Kind of the middle of the pack with the Browns. I think Browns coaching staff has done a great job, and how do you move up into that elite tier? You win a couple of playoff games. That is what is missing from the resume is, couple of playoff, go to a couple of conference championship games, and all of a sudden you're in that elite tier.
Yeah, I agree with the tier. I do not agree with their placement within the tier.
I would agree.
I don't have them behind the Lions in any way.
No.
I would take Stefanski.
Even Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins.
Who's unproven
right.
at this stage.
Yeah.
But if you just look at the Lions, Dan Campbell, would you have him over Kevin Stefanski? Would you have Aaron Glenn over Jim Schwartz? I would not.
No.
But I do agree with the tier, and I agree with you that if you put together a run, they do this list a year from now, you're going to find yourself in that upper tier.
Yeah, and again, I'm 100% in agreement with you. Sean McVay, you could probably even move him up because he won a Super Bowl, and they had to tear it down, which explains why they have been struggling. All right, this from the Bleacher Report: 3 bold predictions for Browns playoff matchup with the Texans. David Njoku leads the Browns in receiving. The ground game is a major asset for the Browns. Myles Garrett produces best postseason performance. Casey, I don't think any of those are terribly bold. I could see all of those happening without blinking an eye.
Yeah, if I were to look at it, and one that's the least likely would be the running game, just because we haven't seen it in a while, but it'd be a welcome sight. That's kind of like the missing piece of this offense, waiting for this running game to catch back on. They've lost their way a little bit in that regard, but they've been able to pick it up through the passing game, so we really haven't noticed the difference there. But if the first thing happens and Myles Garrett has one of those, like an Indianapolis game in the playoffs, it'll be a huge moment for him and for this defense and for the city in general. That's kind of, we've been championing our guy for years, and now we're on the national stage. He kind of gets to prove it to the world. So I'm really pulling for that one.
Yeah, I'm curious and anxious to see how the run game shows up. It was now that the Texans' run defense is good, so let me start with that. It was significantly better against the Jets last time everybody was playing, and it meant something.
Yeah, they were able to hit some chunk runs, and I think that's what it takes. There's going to be times where they're 2 yards and getting tackled, but as long as you can hit an occasional 9 to 12-yard run and kind of keep the defense honest, that loosens everything else up, and it gives your guys confidence. Offensive linemen typically don't like to have to pass block 40 to 50 times a game because it's basically you playing defense. They like to get after, put their hand on the ground, lean forward, kind of exert their dominance. So it'd be nice to see the running game take off this week.
So Will Anderson, Jonathan Grenard, both practicing. It appears they're trending towards playing. If those edge rushers go, how big of a concern is it, given the tackles that the Browns are going to be forced to start and play?
I would say huge. Neither of those guys, they lost Grenard early in that game. Anderson didn't even play. He's definitely their most dynamic pass rusher. And we talked about the path to victory for the Texans. That's part of it. You have to be able to pressure Flacco. The Browns are prone to turnovers as is, but if you can force some short field turnovers, that'll be what keeps them in this game. And if they can't rush the passer, that's just a long day against Joe Flacco. So, yeah, that's going to be huge for them. But I highly doubt they're 100%. You know, like I think that they're getting back because we talk about the word must-win game. Well, this is the impetus of it.
Right.
This is must-win, survive and advance. So if you're 80%, you got to go. So I think that's probably what we're seeing here.
All right, before I let you go, take a look at this. Darryl Stingley Jr. named AFC Defensive Player of the Month. He's allowed a 1.7 passer rating when targeted since week 13. Targeted 3 INTs. Must not have been covering Amari Cooper much in the 265-yard game, because that 1.7 passer rating is impressive. And I say that half in jest. He's a good corner without question, but they tend to not travel him and match him up a lot.
Yeah, I actually wrote a matchup piece that'll be out either tonight or tomorrow, and it's that. Like, they have to have a different plan for Cooper. He actually torched that secondary to the tune of 11 catches for 265 and 2 touchdowns. If you have a corner who's capable of coverage, you need to move him. It needs to be a traveling situation. And maybe even bracket on top of that with a safety. You know, if I'm the Texans, I'm not letting Amari Cooper beat me. I'm making someone else have to step up. But like you said, that'd be out of characteristic for them. They don't travel. You know, it just seems to me like drastic times call for drastic measures. And if I'm the Texans, I'm finding a way to get Stingley on Cooper as much as humanly possible.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Casey Kinnamon, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Great stuff. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. Dog Pound Daily. You can also catch him on Network 216 as well. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.